wasn't connected to many people at the time, so that didn't apply as much. And then pattern recognition, like I said, in 2021, I was watching all these top layer ones hit these astronomical valuations and just trying to take away from each different coin what I could and the similarities, and just trying to develop an eye and an intuition for, what tends to do the best, what performs in a bull market. That is something that I definitely have developed in a sense. Team we spoke on, that was a huge part in my research. Community was another one. It's actually funny, when I was researching Casper at first, before anyone was speaking about it, I saw a few pictures on Twitter and there was already some Casper meetups and everyone had like these Casper shirts on. It was, I don't know what to think about it, but I mean, I don't care. I'm here to make money. I'm here to predict narratives, and that was something that kind of reinforced what I was looking for. And then perception versus reality, going back to that tweet that I said, seeing Casper at a 40, when I bought it at the time, it was a little under $50 million market cap, so it was about like $45 million market cap. It just seemed so mispriced to me at the time. It seems like there was a market inefficiency because of all the things that I explained about how the founder was actually indirectly quoted by the Bitcoin Twitter page, and working on these protocols that were cited in the Ethereum white paper and stuff like that. I just felt like it was severely mispriced in the market, and that grew to be true very quickly. For the 0 to 1, kind of talking about like a unique aspect or something that's new to the market. It's a layer 1, so I mean layer 1s are not new to the market in any sense, but as far as technology goes, they did claim that they did have this block DAG technology. I mean, I'm not super into technology and stuff like that. I prefer looking where flows of money will go to and just trying to build narratives, but they did say that they had this block DAG technology, and that's why they were able to solve the trilemma. And we actually have seen in the bear market a few projects claim to be piggyback off Casper and have these block DAG technologies or whatever, which was super cool to see. But that's basically done for that. There was a project called like Tara or something like that, and they got a lot of hype because it was riding the hype of Casper for like block DAG or something like that. But always stick to the first movers and what they do, because projects that, piggyback off and then just copy pasta type projects, they never catch the hype for a little, but they never really materialize into what they could be. And I always bet on the winning horse and the first movers. Outlier price action. It's actually funny enough, when I was looking at Casper, like as Bitcoin was dumping, Casper was literally making highs. So that in itself was an inefficiency, and it was definitely something to take note on.
Regards to that, let me just show everyone that right now. So if we go back to November 2022, that was when you bought it, was the 9th, right? So it was just about, it was here. You bought here. And if we look at November 9th on Bitcoin, so November 9th, and I guess, November 9th. So on the big crash that Bitcoin had where it hit its basically the exact bottom, Casper was actually in the middle of its rally.
Yeah, it's consolidating right now highs.
Yep, consolidating above all-time highs.
During that time was the actual collapse of FTX. That was that exact week where FTX was collapsing. The whole world was falling down in crypto. And once we had that capitulation candle on Bitcoin, that was my time. I knew I had to allocate heavily into the market, and I was going to DCA down regardless. But once I saw that capitulation wick down, I knew that there wasn't much downside left and that it was time to enter the market more aggressively.
And the next one, initial distribution.
Yeah, initial distribution, like I said, like we talked about a little bit earlier, it was launch and pre-mine, so there wasn't any big VCs holding a large supply. And when I did buy at the time, it did have about 70% circulating, so there was only about 30% left to be mined, which meant that there wouldn't be a lot of inflation into the market coming into the next few years, which was also another solid for the project. And then finally, Age of Project was launched in 2022, I believe, or maybe the very end of 21, but I think 2022, because it was a newer project. There was no bag holders from the last bull market waiting to dump at break even or whatever. And that's something that I only buy new projects from when I started. It's something that you talk about as well. You had a funny reference. I forget what exactly it was about, like a grandma or something.
She's been pump and dumped a few times.
Yeah, but yeah, I only buy new projects at the time. They do have the highest potential in a sense for me, because I wasn't starting with millions of dollars, so I could buy like a Bitcoin or Ethereum, get a 3 to 5x or whatever, and then sail off into the sunset. When you start with like not a lot of money, you do have to take on more risk, and that involves being early and buying new projects and building a thesis and conviction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think this is a really good case study where what Casper showed before it went 50x was pretty much every single characteristic that we look for when we're doing fundamental analysis in this course. And so if you just had applied this course's fundamental process to Casper then, you would have bought it. You would have been like, holy fuck, I found the next coin. But you would have aped in, because everything that we look for, Casper had. And I'll go over it one more time. The flows. So in regards to flows, people always buy new layer ones. So there's always people wanting to put money into new layer ones. And this one, no one really knew about. So it had a lot of future flows when people were to find out about it. Tokenomics, like we said, fair launch, no pre-mine, no VCs, 70% of the coins are already in circulation, no high inflation, blah, blah, blah. Advanced narrative analysis. People are always looking for the next layer ones. And we talked about the narratives around the founder, the fact that he has relations to the Ethereum white paper. I think that was what you said, that they referenced him. He was mentioned on the Bitcoin Twitter account. You know, all this stuff that can build a narrative around how this project's special. Thesis building with network, not relevant, but that's, you know, that's sort of a bonus. Pattern recognition, right? Layer one's always doing well. The team was insane. Community really strong. They did all these meetups. They got the little nerdy shirts on. You know, mindshare wasn't relevant, but I think when you're trying to find new projects, you're trying to find them before they have mindshare. And maybe the way that you could look at mindshare is, do they have a core committed team who just love talking about this project all day? And I think if you looked at Casper, you probably would have seen the community was really passionate and they were just trying to tell everyone they knew about Casper. Perception versus reality, you just said mispriced. You just looked at it and you felt that this coin was mispriced. That's a lot of the time all it takes. It's just that intuition. It feels mispriced, right? That's often all it needs to be. 0 to 1 primitive, like you said, block DAGs. There's a lot of projects trying to copy Casper now. Everyone talks about, there's like a coin called Space Mesh. It uses proof of space, basically like storage space. They're all trying to like copy, you know, the Casper vibe. Outlier price action. That is the perfect example of outlier price action. Breaking and accumulating above all-time highs when the whole crypto was collapsing. That's like as good of a sign as you can ever get to buy, right? Initial distribution. I think it's a classic example of a perfect initial distribution. No VCs, the community got all the coins. There was no pre-mine. Everyone, you know, it was fair game, fair launch. And yeah, Age of Project new. So pretty much you ticked 90% of the boxes here. And this was, you didn't even have this course, which is why I wanted to, you know, have you on this, have you as a part of the course here. What has writing a 50x on Casper taught you? What do you think's the biggest lessons that you've learned from this whole process that you've gone through?
That's a great question. A few things, like when you're so early to a project, there's going to be nobody talking about it. And for newer people, like that may be a turnoff. Like you want the confirmation that like a lot of people like what you're looking for. But in the sense, no one talking about a project could be the best blessing ever. And it's proven true for Casper and as well as Toshi. Nobody was talking about either of those projects on Twitter. There was no big influencers talking about it. You were the only one, you and Mark were the only people I knew that were talking about it. And you really sit down and build a thesis and see where the money will flow next. And if you can really put together a narrative, an advanced narrative, then you know, the sky's the limit for what's possible in these for getting in early. That would probably be the biggest thing that I could say is be comfortable buying a project when not a lot of people are talking about it if it meets all of the fundamental things that we talked about in this project. Mm-hmm. And that would be the biggest thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other parting lessons that you can think of?
So one thing I want to leave you guys off with is just a personal message, because I don't want anyone to go through what I went through at the end of the last bull run, which was making money and then losing all your hard-earned money from the blow off top. So what I want to leave you guys off with is your conviction levels, they rise as price goes up. And what in doubt, this tricks your mind into thinking that prices will go up forever. And it's actually a very dangerous thing. And it turns many people into bag holders, and it turns many people into community members. And knowing when a thesis has fully played out and knowing when to sell is probably one of the most important things you can do. And when you do sell those positions, just make sure you cash out fully, you made your profits. And yeah, that's basically everything. Just knowing when a thesis is played out and being able to sell it is a skill, and work on that as much as possible. And that's all I'm going to leave you with today.
Yeah, that was really, really good. And I think this has been a really good case study into how to do fundamental analysis properly. and a real life case study and application of looking for the characteristics that we look for, finding it, buying it at the right time, and holding that position with conviction, you know, riding it to a 50x return, waiting for that thesis to fully play out. So yeah, thank you, Tyler, for coming on. This was, you know, a really good little section, a little case study for the course. And yeah, I'll see everyone watching this in the next video.